I never thought I'd be writing this, but here I am, pouring my heart out to strangers on the internet. My name is Todd, 28F, and I have an identical twin sister named Stacy, 28F. Our story is complicated, filled with love, rivalry, and now betrayal. Growing up, Stacy and I were inseparable. We were born just minutes apart, with me being the older twin by a mere 3 minutes. Our parents, John, 58M, and Maria, 56F, always joked that we were one soul split into 2 bodies. We shared everything: clothes, toys, friends, and even our first words. Our childhood was idyllic, filled with laughter and the kind of unconditional love only twins can understand. We lived in a small town in Ohio, where everyone knew us as the twins. Our parents ran a small bakery, and Stacy and I spent countless hours there after school, helping to knead dough and frost cupcakes. Those were some of the happiest memories of my life: the smell of fresh bread, the warmth of the ovens, and Stacy's flour-covered face as we giggled over some shared joke. But as we grew older, cracks began to appear in our perfect twinship. It started small. Stacy wanted to cut her hair short in 5th grade, while I wanted to keep mine long. She joined the soccer team, while I preferred to stay inside and read. These little differences snowballed as we entered our teenage years. By high school, we were like night and day. Stacy became the extrovert, always surrounded by friends and admirers. She was bold, adventurous, and seemed to excel at everything she tried. I, on the other hand, became more introverted. I focused on my studies, joined the debate team, and spent my weekends volunteering at the local animal shelter. Our different paths led to tension at home. Our parents tried to treat us equally, but it was clear they struggled. They'd praise Stacy for her athletic achievements, then awkwardly try to find something to compliment me on. I knew they loved us both, but I couldn't help feeling like I was living in Stacy's shadow. The real turning point came during our senior year of high school. Stacy was nominated for prom queen, while I was passed over for valedictorian despite having the highest GPA. I was devastated, and for the first time, I felt real resentment towards my twin. The night of the prom, I faked being sick and stayed home. Stacy went on to win prom queen, and I spent the night crying in my room, feeling like I'd lost not just an award, but my identity as well. After graduation, we both got accepted to State University. I was excited at first, thinking this might be a chance for us to reconnect. But Stacy had other plans. She joined a sorority and quickly became one of the most popular girls on campus. I threw myself into my studies, determined to carve out my own path. It was during my junior year that I met Herman, 29M. We were paired up for a project in our advanced economics class. Herman was everything I'd ever wanted in a partner: intelligent, kind, and with a quirky sense of humor that matched my own. We started spending more time together, studying late into the night and grabbing coffee between classes. I knew I was falling for Herman, but I was hesitant to act on my feelings. Years of living in Stacy's shadow had left me with little confidence. But one night, at a campus party I'd reluctantly attended, I saw Herman across the room. Maybe it was the 2 glasses of wine I'd had, or maybe it was just years of pent-up desire to step out of Stacy's shadow, but I found the courage to approach him. We talked for hours that night, about everything from our childhood dreams to our fears for the future. As the party wound down, Herman leaned in and kissed me. It was magical, like something out of a movie. We started dating soon after. What I didn't know was that Stacy had also noticed Herman. She'd seen us together at the party and, according to her friends, had been furious. I found out later that she'd had a crush on Herman for months but had never acted on it. When Stacy found out Herman and I were dating, she exploded. She accused me of stealing him from her, of always taking what she wanted. I tried to reason with her, reminding her that she'd never even spoken to Herman, but she wouldn't listen. She started spreading rumors about me around campus, telling people I was a backstabber and a terrible sister. Our relationship, already strained, completely fell apart. We stopped speaking entirely. Even when we were home for holidays, we'd avoid each other, making our parents' lives miserable as they tried to mediate between us. After graduation, Herman and I moved to Chicago for work. Stacy stayed in our hometown, taking over our parents' bakery. Years passed, and Stacy and I remained estranged. I tried to reach out a few times, sending birthday cards or Christmas gifts, but they always came back unopened. 5 years after graduation, Herman proposed to me during a surprise trip to Paris. It was everything I'd ever dreamed of: a candlelit dinner, the Eiffel Tower sparkling in the background, and the man I loved on one knee. I said yes without hesitation. As we started planning our wedding, I couldn't help but think about Stacy. Despite everything that had happened, she was still my twin sister. I missed her, missed the bond we used to have. After much deliberation, I decided to extend an olive branch and invite her to the wedding. I sent the invitation with a handwritten note, explaining how much I missed her and how I hoped we could start to rebuild our relationship. Weeks passed with no response, and I began to lose hope. But then, a month before the wedding, I received a call from Stacy. She apologized for her behavior in college and said she regretted letting a guy come between us. She asked if she could not only attend the wedding but help with the preparations. I was cautiously optimistic, hoping this could be a chance for us to repair our broken relationship. The weeks leading up to the wedding were a whirlwind of activity. Stacy and I started talking more, sharing details about our lives that we'd missed over the years. It felt good, like we were finally finding our way back to each other. The day before the wedding, Stacy asked to speak with me privately. We went to my childhood bedroom, which was still decorated with posters and photos from our teenage years. Stacy broke down in tears, apologizing again for her past behavior. She said she'd been jealous and insecure, always feeling like she was competing with me. I was touched by her sincerity and forgave her. We hugged and cried together, feeling like we were finally reconnecting after all these years. On the morning of the wedding, I woke up feeling excited and nervous. As I was getting ready, Stacy offered to go pick up my bouquet from the florist. I thought nothing of it and thanked her for the help. Hours passed, and Stacy didn't return. I started to panic. The ceremony was supposed to start in less than an hour, and I had no bouquet and no twin sister. I tried calling her phone, but it went straight to voicemail. That's when I noticed something was missing from my room, my wedding dress. Reality hit me hard. Stacy hadn't changed at all. Her apology, her offer to help, it was all part of an elaborate plan. She had stolen my wedding dress and disappeared, leaving me with nothing to wear on my wedding day. I broke down crying, feeling betrayed and humiliated. How could I have been so naive? How could I face Herman and all our guests? As I sat there, surrounded by bridesmaids trying to comfort me, I realized this was more than just about a ruined wedding. This was about years of rivalry, jealousy, and unresolved issues between Stacy and me. Now, I'm sitting here, writing this post instead of walking down the aisle. Herman is furious, our guests are confused, and I'm torn between anger and heartbreak. I don't know what to do. Should I try to salvage this wedding somehow? Should I press charges against Stacy for theft? Or should I just accept that my relationship with my twin sister is beyond repair? I need advice. Reddit. How do I move forward from here? Update 1. It's been a month since the wedding disaster, and I'm still trying to process everything that's happened. First, I want to thank everyone for their support and advice. Your comments really helped me gain perspective on the situation. After the initial shock wore off, Herman and I decided to postpone the wedding rather than try to salvage it that day. We sent our guests home with apologies and promises to reschedule. Herman was incredibly understanding and supportive throughout the whole ordeal, which only made me love him more. As for Stacy, she disappeared completely. Her phone was turned off, and none of our family or friends knew where she was. Our parents were beside themselves with worry. They kept calling me, asking if I'd heard from her, blaming themselves for not noticing how bad things had gotten between us. I was torn between worry and anger. Part of me wanted to file a police report for the theft of my wedding dress, while another part just wanted to forget she existed. I spent nights lying awake, replaying our childhood memories, trying to pinpoint where things had gone so wrong. A week after the failed wedding, I received a package in the mail. Inside was my wedding dress, cleaned and neatly folded, along with a handwritten letter from Stacy. The letter was long and rambling, filled with apologies and explanations. She wrote about how seeing me happy with Herman had brought up all her old feelings of jealousy and inadequacy. She claimed she never intended to actually wear the dress or ruin the wedding, but had panicked at the last minute and ran away. She went on to explain that she'd always felt like she was living in my shadow, despite her outward success. While I saw her as the popular, confident twin, she saw herself as constantly striving to measure up to my academic achievements and quiet confidence. She wrote about how she'd struggled with depression and anxiety for years but had hidden it behind a facade of cheerfulness and popularity. I didn't know how to feel about her explanation. On one hand, I was relieved to have my dress back and to know that Stacy was safe. On the other, her actions had caused so much pain and embarrassment. I showed the letter to Herman, and we had a long talk about what to do next. We decided to give Stacy one last chance to make things right. I called her and asked her to meet us at a neutral location, a coffee shop in our hometown. To my surprise, she agreed. The meeting was tense and emotional. Stacy looked terrible, like she hadn't slept in days. She broke down crying almost immediately, repeating her apologies and begging for forgiveness. Herman, always the level-headed one, suggested that we all attend family counseling together to work through our issues. Stacy agreed readily, seeming desperate to make amends. Over the next few weeks, we attended several counseling sessions. Our parents joined us for some of them, and it was eye-opening to see how our rivalry had affected the whole family. Mom admitted that she'd always favored Stacy, seeing her as the more fragile twin who needed more support. Dad, on the other hand, said he'd always been closer to me, appreciating my quieter nature that matched his own. These sessions were hard and often uncomfortable, but we started to make progress. Stacy opened up about her feelings of always being in my shadow, how she felt I always got everything she wanted. I shared my own feelings of hurt and betrayal, not just from the wedding incident but from years of her hostility. We talked about our childhood, about the little moments that had driven wedges between us. Like the time in middle school when Stacy had a crush on a boy, only to find out he liked me instead. Or the time I won a writing contest that Stacy had also entered, leading to weeks of cold silence between us. Through these sessions, we began to understand each other better. We weren't solving all our problems overnight, but we were at least communicating honestly for the first time in years. As for the wedding, Herman and I decided to plan a smaller, more intimate ceremony. We're thinking of having it in a few months, giving us time to heal and hopefully rebuild some family relationships. Our parents are thrilled that we're working things out. Mom has started baking again, something she'd given up when the tension between Stacy and me had been at its worst. She's talking about making our wedding cake, just like she'd always dreamed of doing. I'm still not sure if I can ever fully trust Stacy again, but I'm cautiously optimistic about the future. We're taking things one day at a time, trying to rebuild our sisterhood on a foundation of honesty and mutual respect. There are still bad days, days when the hurt and anger resurface. But there are good days too, days when I catch a glimpse of the closeness we used to share. Yesterday, Stacy and I spent the afternoon looking through old photo albums, laughing at our matching outfits and terrible haircuts. For a moment, it felt like old times. I'll keep you updated on how things progress. Again, thank you all for your support during this difficult time. It's been a long, emotional journey, but I'm hopeful that we're on the right path. Update 2. It's been 6 months since my last update, and I have some surprising news to share. Our family counseling sessions continued, and slowly but surely, Stacy and I started to rebuild our relationship. It wasn't easy, and there were many moments when I questioned whether it was worth the effort. But gradually, we began to rediscover the bond we'd had as children. As we worked through our issues, Stacy revealed something that shocked me. She confessed that her feelings for Herman hadn't been just a crush. They had actually dated briefly during our freshman year of college, before Herman and I even met. It only lasted a few weeks, and they both agreed it wasn't working out. Stacy said she never told me because she felt ashamed and didn't want to complicate things when Herman and I started dating. This revelation hit me hard. I felt betrayed by both Stacy and Herman for keeping this from me for so long. Herman swore he didn't tell me because it had been so brief and meaningless, and he didn't want to create drama between Stacy and me. Still, it took me a while to process this information and decide how I felt about it. I took some time away from both of them to clear my head. I went on a solo trip to the mountains, spending a week hiking and camping. Being alone in nature gave me the space I needed to sort through my feelings. I thought about my relationship with Herman, about the years we'd spent together and the future we'd planned. I thought about Stacy, about our shared history and the progress we'd made in repairing our relationship. When I returned, I had a long, honest conversation with Herman. He apologized profusely for not telling me about his brief relationship with Stacy. He explained that at the time, he didn't think it was important enough to mention, and as more time passed, it became harder to bring up. I could see the regret and sincerity in his eyes. I also had a heart-to-heart with Stacy. She told me more about her relationship with Herman, how it had been mostly based on physical attraction and had fizzled out quickly. She admitted that seeing Herman and me together had initially brought up feelings of jealousy and inadequacy, which had contributed to her hostility towards me. After much soul-searching and many more counseling sessions, I realized that while I was hurt by the secrecy, it didn't change my feelings for Herman or my desire to marry him. If anything, it helped me understand Stacy's behavior better. Her jealousy and resentment suddenly made more sense. With this new understanding, Stacy and I were able to have some really honest conversations about our past, our feelings, and our hopes for the future. We both realized how much we'd missed having each other in our lives. We started spending more time together, just the two of us. We took a cooking class, something we'd always talked about doing as kids but never got around to. It was during one of these classes, as we laughed over our failed attempt at making macaron, that I felt the last of my resentment toward Stacy melt away. As for the wedding, Herman and I finally set a new date. It's going to be a small ceremony in our favorite park, with just our closest friends and family. And yes, Stacy will be there, as my maid of honor. When I asked her, she burst into tears and hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe. It felt like coming home. I know some people might think I'm crazy for forgiving her after what she did, but I truly believe we've both grown and changed. We're not the Stacey people we were 6 months ago, let alone in college. We're adults now, capable of acknowledging our mistakes and working to be better. Of course, trust is still a work in progress. But I'm hopeful for our future as sisters and friends. Life is too short to hold on to grudges, especially against your twin. We've started a new tradition of having weekly sister dates, where we try new restaurants or just hang out and talk. It's been wonderful rediscovering each other as adults. The wedding is in 2 weeks, and I'm both excited and nervous. But this time, I know Stacey will be by my side, supporting me, just like she should have been all along. Our parents are over the moon, thrilled to see their daughters reunited. Mom's been busy baking up a storm, determined to make the perfect wedding cake. I'll update you all after the wedding. Wish us luck. Update 3. The wedding day finally arrived, and I'm happy to report that it went off without a hitch. It was a beautiful, sunny day in the park, and everything felt perfect. Stacey was true to her word and was an amazing maid of honor. She helped me get ready, calming my nerves and making sure everything was perfect. As we stood together in front of the mirror, both of us in our dresses, I was struck by how right it felt to have her there with me. The ceremony was beautiful in its simplicity. Herman and I exchanged our vows under a canopy of trees, surrounded by our closest friends and family. As I looked into his eyes, I knew I was making the right decision. All the drama and pain of the past year melted away, replaced by love and hope for our future together. Stacey stood beside me throughout the ceremony, holding my bouquet and discreetly passing me tissues when I got teary-eyed during the vows. When it came time for the ring exchange, she handed them over with a warm smile and a gentle squeeze of my hand. The reception was small but joyful. Our parents beamed with pride, looking happier than I'd seen them in years. Mom's wedding cake was a masterpiece, a 3-tiered creation decorated with intricate sugar flowers that looked almost too beautiful to eat. One of the most touching moments came during the speeches. Stacey stood up to give her maid of honor toast, and I held my breath, not quite sure what to expect. But her words were heartfelt and moving. She spoke about our childhood, the good times and the bad, and how grateful she was for this second chance at being sisters. There wasn't a dry eye in the house by the time she finished. Herman and I had our first dance to the Stacey song our parents danced to at their wedding, a tribute to the enduring nature of love. As we swayed to the music, I caught sight of Stacey dancing with our dad, both of them laughing at some shared joke. As the night wore on, Stacey and I even did our old twin telepathy party trick, much to everyone's amusement. We'd perfected it as kids, and it felt good to fall back into that easy synchronicity. The evening wasn't without its emotional moments. At one point, I found Stacey sitting alone, looking pensive. When I asked her what was wrong, she admitted that she was feeling a mix of happiness and regret, happy for me, but regretting the years we'd lost to our rivalry. We ended up hugging and crying together, promising to never let anything come between us again. As Herman and I prepared to leave for our honeymoon, Stacey pulled me aside for a private moment. She thanked me for giving her another chance and promised to be the sister I deserved from now on. We hugged tightly, both of us crying happy tears. It felt like we'd come full circle, finally healing the wounds of the past. Herman and I are now on our honeymoon, enjoying the beach and each other's company. I feel like I'm starting this new chapter of my life with a clean slate, a loving husband, a repaired relationship with my twin, and a heart full of hope for the future. When we return, Stacey and I have plans to revive our parents' old bakery together. We're going to combine her business savvy with my baking skills and turn it into something special. It feels right, like we're honoring our past while building our future. As I sit here on the beach, watching the sunset with Herman, I can't help but reflect on the journey that brought me here. It wasn't easy, and there were times when I thought I'd lost everything. But through it all, I've learned the value of forgiveness, the strength of family bonds, and the power of second chances. Thank you all for following this crazy journey with me. Your support and advice helped me navigate one of the most challenging periods of my life. Here's to new beginnings, the power of forgiveness, and the unbreakable bond of sisterhood.